Setting up your meeting for Facebook Live. And once it does, I'll send you the link in the chat as well.
Okay.
And I'll keep an eye out on the chat too. If anyone out there has questions, because we are live. Hi, everyone.
Hi.
What's going on? Let me get this
Hi.
all ready to go. Come on, Facebook. There we go. Awesome. Found us.
Yay.
All right, I'm going to send you this real quick. Post it up. Okie dokie. Gonna post it on the event page and we'll get started in just a minute.
All right. So I just got a question. How do I join the Facebook class that I signed up for? So she just goes to your page, correct?
Yeah. So we're gonna be let's see, is it the workshop that you have with us? I'm assuming.
It's this Facebook Live, yeah. So I'll just send her this link.
Yeah, that'll do it. Exactly. Yeah, if she's looking to join, just send her the link and we'll be there.
Okay.
That's where we should see us.
Shoot, where did she go? Oh. No. Oh, she's on Messenger. Okay.
All right. And I see some folks logging in. Hello. We're just getting everything situated. Okie dokie. Cool. All right. We are good to go. Hey, Amber. And Holly, whenever you are ready, let me know.
Okay, hold on. I'm just sending
no worries.
Sending this link out to Atlanta School of Photography on Facebook. Okay.
All right.
Okay, we're all set.
Cool. Awesome. Well, welcome everybody. Thanks for joining us. I love doing these so much. I get so excited. This is like the highlight of my day because I just get to talk to cool people and talk to cool photographers. So I'm Sarah. I'm the director of the Atlanta School of Photography, and I am here with Holly Jansen, who is a travel and expedition photographer leading expeditions to Iceland, Big Sur, Yellowstone, I think just to name a few. And I am super excited to pick her brain about some things that I've been thinking about since we planned this. So, and of course, as always, if you guys have questions, throw them into the chat. Please, absolutely. Hey, Jamie. Yay, Jamie's watching too.
Yay.
So,
hi, Jamie.
Jamie took a workshop with Holly and introduced us. So really super appreciate it, Jamie. Really excited. So yeah, so if you guys have questions, throw them into the chat. I'm watching. There's a little bit of a delay, so if I'm not responding right away, don't worry, I'll get to it. But yeah, cool. So okay, first things first. Let's see, Holly, how did you get started in photography? That's always my first question for any photographer. I'm always curious to hear the story.
Well, thanks for having me here, and thanks for introducing us, Jamie. So photography, well, it started way back when. My dad was a photography fanatic. He was a college professor and took workshops as well, you know, early on. And the thing that really got me going was that he took workshops with Ansel Adams.
Oh, so, man, are you serious?
Yeah. So
that's insane. That's so cool. Yeah. It's like, you know that he did them, but you just don't know like folks who actually like did. That's awesome. That's so cool.
Yeah.
I'm geeking.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we were living in the San Francisco Bay Area, and so Yosemite is, what, 4 hours from there. So we'd go to Yosemite all the time. And so that's how he connected with Ansel Adams in Yosemite. So when he took the workshop, I think I was probably about 6 when he started taking workshops with him. And that was the point where he put a camera in my hands. I was about 6. And if you see pictures of me when I was a child, there's always a camera around my neck. There's always, I always had something going on with the camera. And to this day, it's still true, obviously. So after he did the workshops, our whole family, we would sit down at dinner, and our conversations around the dinner table would always be about landscape photography. And when you took the picture of that leaf, you didn't move it now, did you? You composed around it, didn't you? That sort of thing. So it was like drilled into my head from the time I was about 6 years old.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, it was my grandpa that got me into photography in the first place. So he was an ad man in Chicago. And so kind of like among building different advertising campaigns for different places, he picked up photography, and he introduced me to like a whole bunch of different kinds of art, but it was like photography that he saw at like say about the same age that was like really starting to stick. And he was like not wanting to you got really excited about digital photography at the time, and
Oh,
all of his friends were like, digital's not going to be a thing. So he
oh,
started
funny.
like giving me digital cameras, and I was like the one person that he could like hang out with and like take digital camera pictures with. So it was like just a trip. And yeah, it's so funny how it starts at such like a young age, and you just kind of grow with it as you get
Yeah,
older.
you just keep and I remember my first digital camera, I think, had 2 megapixels,
Yeah,
maybe.
same. Yeah. Mine was a Sony Mavic. My grandpa bought me a Sony Mavic, and you could put a floppy disk into it. And
Oh,
each
wow.
floppy disk held 8 pictures. And we were ecstatic. We thought it was the coolest thing in the whole wide world to take a floppy disk and then put it into your computer and like see a picture. We were just like, wow. And we were
Yeah.
like freaking out. And thinking about it now with kids running around with cell phones in their pockets, I'm just like, you have no idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I would try to find ways to, okay, so then I was shooting with film, but I wanted to learn digital.
Yeah.
So I was trying to figure out a way to get my film to to get it digitized. So I would
Yeah.
send my film to Kodak, and then they would send me a CD, I think. Or they would, and so then I would have it digitized. And that was how I started doing, Photoshop and that sort of thing. Was probably Photoshop, I don't know, 2 or something.
Yeah.
So I was just like obsessed. I've got to learn this. And so, yeah.
That was kind of like the coolest thing of being in that era of photography where there was all these new things for us to kind of absolve and learn about. Like, so
Mhm.
kind of like as it was ongoing, it was all this new information that was suddenly like available and things becoming more accessible for it. So how did that transition into doing like workshops and teaching photography and wanting to kind of like spread that knowledge around?
Yeah. So, with my love of photography, of course you have to travel, right? You have to take pictures of things. So my husband and I would travel quite a bit, especially through the Eastern Sierras, Yosemite. Like I said,
Oh yeah.
Yosemite was always in my blood as a kid. So we would travel in Yosemite and the Eastern Sierras and Big Sur, all over California, and taking pictures. And so then it got to the point where we were getting up at dawn, get to the right light, and and we were shooting with, for a really long time, 5 megapixel cameras. So we graduated from a 2 megapixel to a 5 megapixel, right?
Oh,
And we actually shot in, and at that time they were pro, like that was a pro camera. We were
yeah,
shooting with pro Olympus cameras, and they were 5 megapixels. Could that possibly be?
I
Yeah, I
think
think they were
so.
5 megapixels. Yeah. And so, I can remember, being out, like I said, being out at dawn, and, we got this camper so that we could actually be at location. So we didn't have
Oh,
to like
cool.
drive from a hotel to the location. All we could do was like, get out of our camper and be able to start taking pictures. And so we got to know, especially the Eastern Sierras and Yosemite and all that area really well. So where to shoot it, how to get there, when to be in the best light, all those kinds of things. And so we started doing art shows. Okay, so we started printing our images from all of these trips. We'd print them on canvas and we started taking our stuff around to art shows. Okay, so the art shows were pretty successful for a while until the recession hit in 2008, I guess it was.
Mhm.
And so people didn't have, it was pretty easy at that time. Everybody had money in their pocket and they would just, okay, yeah, I like that. So then it got to the point where in the art shows, people were like, yeah, I really like that, but I want to learn how to do that myself. So that's how we started doing it. Was, well, we can show you. Well, where did you take it and how did you take it? Well, we're happy to show you. So that's really how the workshop started. The art shows went away at that point because of the recession, but there was still a market for education. And so that's how it all started. And it pretty much started, actually it started about 2006 is when we started doing the workshops.
Okay, yeah, it was kind of, yeah, and again, there's like sort of like an interesting shift of a time where folks were spending money, even now, I feel like spending money more on like experiences rather than
Hmm.
like physical stuff. So like
Yeah,
in the mid 2000s, that kind of made that shift from like, oh, let me buy a whole bunch of equipment and I can sort of take that on. And now we're starting to see like, I don't know if you see it in your workshops and things, but of course, a lot of photographers are still going to be total tech heads and want to like get cool little bits of equipment and all that. But
right.
I think since, yeah, started teaching around the same time, and it's kind of gone from more of like gathering up gear to I'll work with what I have, but I just want to like see it and I want to
Hmm.
experience it and I want to have
And
that moment.
it's definitely about the experience. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Oh,
So yeah, so that's really how the workshop started, and then we just started to expand our repertoire, and so we started doing San Francisco and Big Sur, and then Iceland became popular,
yeah.
and we connected with a guide and a photographer in Iceland, and so we started promoting Iceland, and we started for a couple of years. Actually, we tried to promote a summer trip, and the summer trips, everybody was doing summer trips to Iceland at the time. And he said, well, why don't you do winter trips? Photographers like the Aurora. And sure enough, man, we started going to Iceland every winter. So we went 6 winters in a row shooting, the beautiful waterfalls and the Aurora Borealis and all of that. And so this is actually the first year we haven't gone to Iceland in the winter.
Yeah.
So it
It's
was,
definitely a year of firsts. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
And like bad
yeah,
firsts.
yeah, yeah.
So is the
So
Aurora Borealis, is it there during the summer? Is it just not as like apparent, or is it only
yeah,
during the winter
it's it's on the North Pole all year round, but because it's light 24 hours a day in the summer, you don't see it.
That's right. They have that
Hmm.
crazy seasonal bizarreness. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Oh man. So does that
So,
mean when you go in the winter, you get a little bit more time to be able to photograph it if it's darker?
well, so when we go in the winter, it gets dark around 6 o'clock, and then the aurora still doesn't necessarily come out until later in the evening.
Okay.
Um, but it just really depends upon the intensity of the aurora. So one of the first times we saw it in intensity, it started at 6 o'clock in the evening when it was still dusk out, and it was bright, and it was, I was looking up in the sky and I was going, look at those green clouds. Wait, those clouds are green.
Like,
No, those
oh,
aren't green clouds. So yeah, so you just never know. Every time it's completely different that we've seen it. Sometimes it looks like clouds, sometimes it's just dancing across the sky. Sometimes it's just really faint and you can only see it from the back of your camera. You can't actually see it with your
oh.
eye. So it's different every time.
That's got to be a really cool moment where it's like maybe you can only see it with, because that's always been a cool thing for me as a photographer, where the camera can capture a thing that like our human eyes can't, and that like we
Hmm.
can't experience otherwise. So that's got to be like a really fun moment where it's like, no, it's there, like trying to tell people like it's there, just like leave your shutter open for a little bit longer and it kind of like magically appears in a way.
So I think it was 2 years ago. It was the first night of our workshop, and we're at this a lot of the places in Iceland are little private homes that have turned into guest houses, when
Oh,
the
cool.
tourist industry took over. So we're in this like little private guest house with a farm behind us. And so we're looking out the window and it looks kind of cloudy. And we're not really quite sure what it looks like. It's about, I don't know, 11 o'clock at night. We're in our pajamas. And so my husband says, well, do you think that's it? I don't know. Shall we go out and look? Well, let's just put on some, warm snugglies over our pajamas and just go out and take a look. So we went out and looked, couldn't really tell. So again, we took a picture of a 20-second exposure, looked on the back of the camera, and sure enough, there's the green starting to fall into the exposure. So we were like, got everybody up. We had 6 other people. We got everybody up. They were all in their pajamas. So we're out running around in like, I don't know, 25-degree weather in our
Oh.
pajamas, taking pictures of the aurora. This dog comes out of nowhere. It starts like barking at us intensely, like, what are you doing out in my property? Go away, you know. So, and it was just crazy. So then like we're getting ready to go, oh, have you seen enough? Yeah, I think we're good. So we go back to our room. One of our clients gets locked out of her room. She's in her pajamas. It's midnight and the farmer that owns the property is asleep. Anyway, she was able to stick her hand in the window and she'd happened to put her key on the ledge.
Oh
But anyway,
man.
it's stories like that, where one of the best, if you could probably, there's a
Yeah.
shot actually behind me. That's the shot from that night when we were out running around in our pajamas.
Wow. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, you can see it.
Oh, that's fantastic. Because then it's like, it's not only just like an awesome picture, it's like you go back to that
Yeah.
memory of like how it was taken and everything. Those are always so fun. Oh,
So
it's so great.
that's really the beauty about landscape photography is every picture has a story, right?
Yeah.
Every picture has a moment or a story or an experience that
Yeah.
happened, right?
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. And that brings me to my next question, which is like my favorite one to ask because as photographers, we pretty much work in a profession of Murphy's Law. Like anything that can go wrong will go wrong. And there's just a long list of things, at least like for me as an event photographer, that I can count off. But of course, like taking them as learning experiences as you go. So like when I ask you like about Murphy's Law as a photographer, is there any moment that comes to mind that you can think of, whether it's like you taking pictures or like in one of the workshops or something like that?
Probably probably the one that comes to mind right away is we were running a workshop in the Eastern Sierras and Mono Lake. Okay, so it's this saltwater brine lake in the Eastern Sierras. It's beautiful, and so I'm out there with a client. I don't know, there were probably 5 clients with us. I was with one, and Mark was over on the other side of the lake with 4 others. We're walking around the lake, and we see some geese, I think, and we start like looking at the geese, and I step a little bit closer to the lake and my foot falls in to like my hip. Okay, so I fall into the mud. It was like quicksand mud.
Oh
Okay,
my God.
so all of a sudden I'm standing, and I have my pack on. I'm standing where I could actually sit down. I mean, I was that far into it, couldn't get my boots out, couldn't get myself out. My client, and I was screaming. Said they could hear me screaming from across the lake. They didn't know what was going on, right? So it was quite an experience. Unfortunately, my client who was with me, he didn't get sucked into the mud like I did. So
Yeah.
he literally took one leg at a time, pulled me out of the mud, and luckily he was able to. We were like rolling around in the mud as he's trying to pull me out of the mud. So
Oh man.
so I don't know if it was technically quicksand, but I probably was. I mean, the way that I just went
Yeah.
right into it.
Yeah, exactly. It's
So,
like I had a similar one that happened. I was in Porcupine Mountains in Upper Michigan. So like Yoopers, as my Wisconsin self calls it. And similar, not nearly as high, but like maybe like knee high kind of thing. And yeah, had a camera, but I specifically remember having my camera, and as soon as I slipped off the log that we were like walking across the mud from, and I slipped and I fell, my hands immediately went Like, not the camera, anything but the
Right.
camera.
Right.
And I've seen some of my friends take some of the most gnarly hits from nature simply just to save their cameras. One of my friends like face planted as he was slipping just to like move the camera out of the way and
Oh
like save
no.
the camera, but like ended up scraping the side of his face. But the rest of us around him were all photographers. So we came up and we didn't even ask like, James, like, are you okay? We were like, is the camera okay? Is it fine? Is it okay? And he's like, the camera's good. And he's like bleeding off the side of his face. And it's like, oh my God, what's wrong
Oh,
with us? Like,
I know. What are we doing out here?
it's like, oh
Yeah,
no, oh geez.
yeah.
Yeah, it's
So
like, that's definitely, oh my gosh, that's insane. That's
yeah, so
insane.
that
So
was that was pretty funny. I'm trying to think of some of the others. Oh, well, one of my favorite Iceland stories is we were out um, shooting this. It's iconic location. The names are so hard to pronounce. I can never.
they're like
Anyway,
30 letters long. Yeah.
yeah. So I had this like intention for this shot that I wanted. I wanted to get the leading line of the waves and then get the mountain at the end of the leading
Oh
line.
yeah.
So, so I was all set up for this, and I had my waterproof boots on, and so I knew I was going to get wet. And where it's 25 degrees out and the wind's blowing 30 miles an hour, which is typical of Iceland. And, the waves are coming up and they're washing over my feet, and I'm trying to get the shot, just the right shot. And then all of a sudden I realized that the water is seeping into my boots, right? Into my wool socks, into my boots. And so whenever I look at that shot now, I did get the shot that I wanted. So I wanted the reflect. So this mountain reflects on the sand and it
Oh
reflects
wow.
on the water. So I wanted it just the right look,
Yeah.
and so I did get the shot that I wanted, but every time I look at it, I think about my cold feet,
Just
right?
brutally cold feet. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
like Jamie, even here, was just like one of the most awesome experiences of my lifetime, having gone on the workshop in Iceland. My fingers were burning. They were so cold and I was squealing like a 3-year-old, but
Yeah.
still says it's one of the most awesome experiences of her life. So that's kind of, I think, just like the magic of like travel and expedition photography, like,
Yeah.
and photographers like yourself, where it's just like, yeah, it's going to be brutal sometimes, but that picture was really good. So
Yeah.
it's like that
But
motivation.
it'll come at a time when you don't expect it. Like on Jamie's trip, she'll remember this. We were shooting at this waterfall, not Godafoss, at this waterfall. Okay, so we're shooting there, and then we wait for sunset. We're shooting at sunset. Then we decided to hang out and wait for the evening to see if because the aurora was forecasted, and they tried to forecast it, but it doesn't seem like it's not like a weather forecast. They can say, well, the sunspots are going to be at a certain angle, but anyway, so the forecast that was going to be a good aurora. So we're sitting there. We brought our dinner. We're sitting in this dark van, the six of us, and we're freezing, right, waiting for the aurora, and nothing was happening. We're seeing the waterfall. There's clouds. But there's no aurora. So we're like, okay, are we done? Okay, so we drive back to the hotel. I don't know, it was probably an hour and a half away. Get out of the car, we look up in the sky, and it's just like dancing, right? So it was actually right over the hotel was where it was happening, but an hour
Wow.
away by the waterfall, no. But we wanted, in order to get a good shot with that sort of thing, it's always nice to have a good foreground and beautiful waterfall, but it doesn't always happen that way.
That's such a
But
trip where it's just like, okay, I guess it's not. And then it's just waiting for you at the hotel, like, hi, are we getting drinks? Like, what? I've been
yeah,
waiting for you
right.
guys. Like, where have you been? So
Yeah, yeah.
oh
So that
man.
was funny.
So I think that brings me to like my next question is in terms of like preparation. So for expeditions like that, when it's that cold, how do you prepare not only your body but your camera for that level of cold as well, like
Yeah.
the weather that you're gonna encounter?
Um, I mean, I think that take makes a difference with the kind of equipment that you have. The bodies that are a little bit more pro level bodies are able to withstand the cold. Um, we don't. we don't necessarily put any protective cover on the cameras unless it's raining, or whether it's snowing, or whether, you know, whether it's really wet, then we use I have a cover for it. It's like a combination plastic and fabric. I wouldn't recommend like the ones that are plastic bags. Those, especially in a place like Iceland where it's really windy, they just blow away, right? So,
Yeah.
or you have it like flapping around your head kind of a thing. And it's, you know, it's, you have a lot to think of when you're out there in those kinds of conditions, and you're trying to work your camera with your gloves on, and you've got a hat, and you've got the wind blowing, and you probably have something over your face. So, you know, as far as protecting your camera, I think you'd have to do research on the type of camera that you're going to take, because we did have a couple that came with us to Iceland a few years back, and they both had entry-level Nikons, and both cameras failed.
Yeah.
So, you know, and they're thinking, well, I got a Nikon digital SLR, it should be fine, but no,
Yeah.
but both of them failed. So, you know, and that was the only time we've ever had any real camera failures. We've had clients that maybe tripped and fell in the water kind of thing, like you were saying. But the only one was like the entry-level cameras that failed in the cold weather. The most of the preparation is just about preparing yourself with the clothes. So we you know, we always give out a supply list of what clothes to bring, and as long as people follow those rules on what clothes to bring and what kind of socks to wear and that sort of thing, they're able to be comfortable in those conditions. And when you're comfortable, you can be creative. If you're not comfortable, it's nearly impossible to feel creative and inspired by a location if you're freezing or your toes are cold or whatever. So yeah,
Yeah,
so
at
it's
that point,
important
it's
to
like,
have the,
just get me inside. I'll take a picture of the fireplace. Like, I don't care. I'm ready to just for this to be done. Yeah.
yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, it's like if you prepare enough, it's almost like it's not really a thing. It's like, of course, kind of clunky and awkward, maybe like taking your hands and trying to manipulate the camera with gloves. But yeah, like I said, like I grew up in Wisconsin. At a certain point, you're just
Oh,
like, yeah, okay, all right. You just
yeah.
like kind of feel like Randy from
From
Christmas
Christmas
Story
Story.
a little
Yeah,
bit, but if you could still operate the camera, then you're good. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So, you know, with those kinds of conditions, the equipment is so important.
Yeah.
And again, you know, with a little bit better quality equipment too, you know, people will come to me and they go, oh, I can't get the exposure right, or I can't get this, you know, I can't get it to work. And it's like, well, you know, sometimes the cameras just can't make it, or if they're a little bit older, they can't handle it. So
Hmm. Yeah. So come take a class beforehand so you know what you're doing when you get out there.
that's right. That's right. And that's
Shameless
really,
plug for both of us. Yes.
no, it's really important, because, you know, you get a new camera and you're opening the box as you're on the airplane, right? You know,
Even
reading
me
the
as a seasoned
manual.
photographer, that would make me nervous. Like
Yeah,
even me for having done this for a while now, that would make me nervous to be like, I'm just going to bring a new camera to Iceland just for
yeah,
fun. Yeah.
yeah.
No, because there's so many different pieces with it where it's like, if you can just get out there, then you're worrying less about the camera and more about just getting a good picture. Because
Mhm.
unfortunately, sometimes like you might get overwhelmed and might find it where it's like, I just don't know what dial does what. I don't know how to change shutter speed and aperture and all that. And then it's just like, well, this whole big trip that you planned for and flew across the world to do is out the window. So yeah, take a class.
Well, last summer when we went, part of the trip was to go to the West Fjords and shoot the puffins.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, fun. I
so
love
I
that
thought
stuff.
that was really going to be a fun thing to do. And so what we did before we went is we got together and we practiced on tracking. You know, so what do you do when you need to track birds? You know, what are the settings that you need? Practice, practice, practice. So we would go down to the beach and we practice shooting you know, the pelicans as they're flying by. You know, could you get the tracking right? Do you have the exposure continuous focus right? And once you practice, practice, practice with that, once we were out with the puffins, it was no problem. You know, it's like, okay, yeah, I know how this is going to work. But can you imagine if you're out there? And for me at that point, I had my camera was fairly new. And so if I didn't know what I was doing, and we had, this once in a lifetime, hopefully not once in a lifetime experience, but, and not able to shoot it, that's what I think is most important for anybody who's, trying to learn a new camera, is trying to learn photography, and maybe you have a special trip in mind. Practice a lot, take a class before you go on this trip,
Yeah, there's stuff
because
everywhere. Like even in Atlanta, if it's just if you're here or wherever, it doesn't even have to be Atlanta. I know we've got other folks outside of the city. Hi. But it can be really, yeah, anything. So if you can just even get like squirrels running around in the park, that's
Mhm.
close enough to prepare you. There's a ton of ducks and geese down at Piedmont Park here in Atlanta. And if you take pictures of those, then that might help to prepare you to take pictures of the puffins. Or if like you've got Krog Street or Jackson Street Bridge, which is like that beautiful skyline, the Walking Dead sort of skyline of the city, and do like night photography with that, at least that kind of gives you some familiarity to build up your skills in advance. So you're not learning it as you're experiencing it, because that can be kind of terrifying.
I use my dog all the time too as a
Yeah,
model. I'll throw the ball and I get him to run, and I'll put the tracking on my camera and play with that too. And then that teaches you how to work with it. You have a model that's willing and able. You might as well take advantage of it, right?
exactly. Dog parks are like one of the number one places where I tell my students to go practice. I'm just like, because there's nothing more chaotic and unpredictable than a dog in a dog park. So if you can at least get some good shots at the dog park, that should give you a good concept for a lot of other types of things that you want to take pictures of.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
in that realm, is there things that you like along the workshops that you tell your students to look for in terms of the way that they're composing some of their images? Like you're talking a little bit before about having this beautiful shot with like the sand and water reflecting. So kind of those like compositional tips that you might pass on to some of your students.
Um, one of the things that's, the one of the really basic rules of composition, the rule of thirds, works so well with landscape photography. Don't put the subject, your subject matter, in the center of the picture. That's one of the first things that we do, even in a, just like a basic photography class. We have people go out and go, okay, well, we'll do it on the pier here we live near Ventura, California. So we'll do it on the pier, and we'll go out and take a picture and come back and show us, and then we tell them a little bit about composition and the rule of thirds. And then they come back and it's a completely different thing. They could take a picture of a trash can and it looks much more interesting than if they were just to go and, okay, I'm just going to shoot this trash can. So, and the other thing is to set up the grid in your camera, the rule of thirds grid in your camera. So it subtly reminds you that rule is there for you to use. And it works. It works all the time. And don't center your horizon line. That's another thing. So if maybe you're out on the beach and you're taking a picture of the ocean, and so many people, they'll automatically come back with that horizon line smack dab in the middle. And you know what that says to me? It says, you don't know what's more important in this picture. Is the sky more important, or
Yep.
is the sand or the ground more important? If you have an interesting sky, where you guys get on the East Coast in the summer, you get more interesting skies. Here on the West Coast, we get pretty much blue sky all the time in the summer. So if I was to be shooting on the beach today, I would say, okay, I'd have 2/3 of my composition of the horizon line to be on the beach area or the pier or whatever, and only 1/3 in the sky. So those would be my, most the beginning composition rules, I think.
Yeah,
And then you
that's so
can
funny. You say
build into it.
exactly what I say in my composition day of photo one, where we bring up a landscape, and it's just like you're exactly the same, where it's like, which one, tell me which one is more important. Tell the viewer which one I'm supposed to care more about, which one is more interesting, which one has more stuff in it. Because
Mhm.
yeah, putting it 50-50 is kind of just like riding the line, going just like, I don't
Yeah.
know. It's like when you put that horizon line at 50-50 and there's nothing interesting on either, or like competing of interest on either end, that's like the photographer's equivalent of just like the shrug emoji, which is being like,
Oh,
oh,
right.
yeah.
Yeah. I don't know.
Maybe. Okay. It's like, no, come on, tell me, which one do you like more? And like, why do you like it more? And just show it off. It's like, if it's cool, then yeah, I want to see that stuff for sure. Yeah.
Right.
Give it
Right.
more room,
So,
give it more space to explore. Yeah.
yeah.
Cool. Awesome. So the other question that I had is when you go, and I guess this is maybe even just for me and my planning ahead, because I definitely want to go to Iceland at some point in my life. Do you have to know the language ahead of time when you go, or do most of the folks generally speak English?
Most everybody in Iceland speaks English,
Really? Okay.
because they had a US base there. I think it was I'm not sure if it was an Air Force base, but where the airport is right now, where the Reykjavik airport is it's called Keflavik, was a US base, or it might still be. So everybody in Iceland learns English in school. So I would say
Huh.
90% of the people that you come in contact with know English. So there's no problem getting around.
Okay, good. Because I
Yeah.
tried to learn French, but because I learned German when I was younger, it just kept like overlapping and I was mixing the two languages together. And I was like, okay, so that's how my brain works when I try to learn a language now. It just wants to
Oh,
insert German at random points. And it was a very confusing experience for the people that I spoke to in France when I lived
oh,
there.
oh,
So
funny.
yeah, I was like, I'm sorry. They were like, your accent's really good though. And I was like, cool, I have no idea what I'm talking about. That's great.
Yeah,
Yeah. I was like,
yeah.
I have a really good accent of a nonsense language.
Oh,
Great.
good.
Yeah.
No,
Oh,
you'll
yeah.
feel comfortable there. Yeah, you'll
Okay,
feel
cool,
comfortable.
cool. Because I was like, that's
Yeah,
one less thing I need to worry about.
yeah.
Coleman Tyler, he was asking, sorry if I was late, if Holly answered this question, why landscape photography? Just kind of in general, what draws you to landscape and
Um,
exploring?
well, it started off with the whole connection to Ansel Adams and the Yosemite, and then once you start doing it, it's very when you're out in nature, it's very peaceful. You have to sit and you have to wait, and you have to wait for the light, so you're there, and it's just you need to sit, really get with the moment and be with the experience there. And so you may be there for a couple of hours and you're just you're there, you're away. It's so peaceful, and it's creative at the same time. um and you're set up, you're forced to slow down too. So maybe you're set up on a tripod and you're working your composition, you're forced to slow down. It's not like a snap and run. It's not, when we go to the national parks, you see the people driving through the national parks with their cameras out at their sunroof, and that's how they're taking pictures of the parks,
Like,
right?
what are you
So
doing? How
I
is
see
that?
this all the time. Yeah.
It's so bizarre. I would like stop the car and be like, I just want to know your thought process of what's happening
Yeah.
here. Like, is it just to say I was there and that I did? I don't know. We'll never know.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, it's like for me as an event photographer, that's my like go-to escape kind of thing is nature photography and being able to essentially have the complete opposite, which is like don't get me wrong, like I love doing event photography. It's super fun. I get to work with kids, which are hilarious and amazing. But it's nice to instead of have that constantly like go, 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 go inside of your brain of what's next, what's next. I have a small amount of time to capture as much as I can. It's you have this like most, at least what I consider is like the most meditative area of
Hmm.
photography, which is nature photography. And you just get to kind of like put a lot of other stuff aside and go, no, this is what we're doing right now. And it might take 1 minute or it might take an hour, but we're going to find out. And if it does, then it's
Yeah.
okay. And I'm just like, oh, I love that. That's so great. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And you never know what you're going to get. And the funny thing is that, with us all staying at home now, I very seldom go out and shoot in my local area. And I live in Southern California, and we have the beautiful beaches, 5 miles away, but very seldom do I ever go down and shoot the sunset. It's like we have to be traveling, we have to be in Big Sur, or we have to be in Iceland for me to go out to the beach and hang out there for a couple of hours. So this being at home is maybe we're a little bit more conscious of what's around us. And now we will go walk on the beach. I'll take my camera with me and I'll shoot the birds and shoot the dog and shoot the
Yeah.
all the stuff I was talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like that wasn't until I started the school where folks started requesting certain places around Atlanta where I'm just like, yeah, but like only tourists go there. And I was like, but wait, I live here. I should know what that is, and I should have photographed it at some point. It's
Hmm.
like, yeah, it's like, why not? Let's go down to, so we had a workshop plan for Centennial Olympic Park this weekend, the
Oh,
big one downtown, and apparently they've closed it indefinitely. And I'm just like,
oh,
gross. But
bummer.
I hadn't ever been until one of our students was like, we should go photograph Centennial Olympic Park at night. And it was like, yeah, we should. Like, why haven't I done that? So, and yeah, so during all of this, it's kind of like reinvigorated a lot of that. And I see a lot more people getting into nature photography, which is really exciting.
Hmm. Hmm.
So saying, well, okay, maybe I don't have as much of an option to do X, Y, and Z from before, but nature photography is just there and it's always open and available. That's the other thing that I love about it. It's just like you
Yeah.
can just pick up and go at any time
Hmm.
as long as the weather isn't like, well, even if the weather is absolutely awful and miserable, you can still figure it out. So,
Well, you get atmosphere, you get clouds, for, like I said, for us, it's blue sky, 8 months of the year. So when we get clouds and rain, and we're excited about it.
yeah. I know that's like the weirdest thing where it's a bunch of photographers just immediately running out going like, it's beautiful now. Go outside. And everyone's like, there's going to be like a tornado in like an hour. And it's
Yeah,
like, well,
yeah.
it's not now. It's really cool light. Let's go. I'm not advocating for going and photographing tornadoes. But yeah,
That sounds like fun. Yeah.
it would be fun though, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God. I know I got to meet someone that actually does like nature photography and like with drones and chasing like tornadoes and stuff like in
Wow.
Heartland, and it's just like that sounds incredibly terrifying but super amazing at the same
Yeah.
time. The pictures are epic. It's like lightning
Yeah.
strikes in like 5 different places in one picture. I'm just like, oh, get out of here. So my other
That'd be
question
fun.
was in terms of the image itself, do you go with what's just in the camera or do you do any kind of like post-processing with it as well?
Well, as you know, digital photography is fully 50% post-processing and 50% capture. So, well, 50% maybe educated capture, not just, point and shoot or snapshots.
That's a good
But
way to
so if
put
you,
it. Yeah.
yeah. So if you know what you're doing and you have a intention for your exposure and your aperture and your shutter speed, um, and then every digital, so if you're shooting in raw, every digital image is going to need to be have a little bit of saturation or a little bit of uh, of, of sharpening. And so yes, oh, for sure. And one of the things that I find to be most dramatic when they're doing post processing, and I can't say that I enjoy spending hours and hours on it. So I do a lot in Lightroom. And one of the main things that I think makes the biggest difference in my post processing is adding some warm light to it. Okay, so maybe I'll do a touch of vibrance, not saturation, but a touch of vibrance and some sharpening, and bring in some warm light in areas of the picture that maybe already has light in it. So that's one thing that I won't do, is I won't like replace a sky, or I won't add something that's not there.
Not
But
like a
maybe,
compositing total
yeah,
redo
that's
of whatever.
like,
Yeah.
what's the point of going out on a landscape and standing there for 2 hours and waiting for the right moment and the right light and the right clouds, and then you go home and go, I don't really like that, I'm gonna change that sky out.
Yeah,
It
no.
doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
But if there's maybe a trash bag in the middle of the picture that I didn't notice when I was shooting it, okay, I will take that out.
Yeah.
But as far as like replacing elements in a picture, I don't do that. But like I said, the one thing that I do think makes the biggest difference, especially in landscape, is maybe to add a little bit of warm light to it.
Yeah,
Um,
it's some of the things that I found like it can make all the difference in the world. Like especially when shooting a raw image, there's so much information that's buried in the picture. So it's really fun in that first part to like bring it into Lightroom and just like mess around with the different tonal qualities and see what else is like actually hiding inside of the picture. And it's just like, there it is. I knew I took a good picture kind of moment where it's like, oh yeah, it was there. It's just having to kind of extract it out a little bit.
and that's the other thing that's going to make a big difference in the quality of the cameras that you're using.
Yeah.
So for the last, I don't know, 5 or 6 years, I was shooting Micro Four Thirds Olympus, and I really pulled a lot out of that camera. I was really able to go as far as I possibly could with it until I was just like, okay, I'm done. I want to go full frame. And Olympus didn't really have anything that I wanted as far as full frame, so I jumped into the Sony line. So I got the Sony full frame, and the difference in the quality of the images far as pulling out highlights and shadows and doing any of the post processing makes a huge bit of difference. I don't
It's
have
night
to
and
like
day.
fight with it.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm pretty good with the post processing, and maybe that the Olympus taught me how to do that, because I really had to really fight with it to get the noise out and to get the
Yeah.
highlights out and to really work with it. And now when I have this Sony camera, it's just a breeze,
It's
you
just
know.
smooth butter. I know. I have the
Oh,
A7
it's
III and I'm just like, oh,
okay.
so great. That's what I tell my students though. I'm just like, give yourself a time to like kind of not necessarily suffer, but like make it a little bit harder on yourself at first. And then when you do upgrade to that nicer gear that has a lot of that available to it, it's like your whole world just becomes so much easier and you
Mhm.
appreciate it being easier and it being nice. And it's not just like, oh, well, this is supposed to happen all the time. It's like, no, 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 no. This is way cool because you went through years of, yeah, fighting with images. And then all of a sudden it's just like, shoot, and it's like, oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, there it
Yeah.
is. Cool. Good to know. Great. Did it.
And
Done.
it's
Yeah.
the same thing with the tracking. So again, the tracking on the
Yes.
Olympus was not very good. And so when I have the A7R III, so basically the same camera.
Mhm.
The tracking is just incredible.
Insane.
It's just
It's
like so fun.
ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah, my boyfriend and I, once we got it, we were just sitting there, yeah, with our dog and just like having him go back and forth and just like tracking him as he went along. And it was just like, how is it doing this? Like we were just geeking out over it. Yeah. I think I have Jamie's. Yeah, I have Jamie's old A7 III. So thanks, Jamie. Yeah.
Oh, you
I love
do?
it.
I was going to
Yeah.
say Jamie has that. Well, so Jamie, what did Jamie get?
Jamie upgraded and I think got the 4 and then I got her 3 and
Oh,
I love it. I love
all
it. I'm
right.
obsessed with it. So yeah. Last question that I have is where's your favorite place to go? If you could just hop on a plane and pop over, where is it?
Well, three guesses. No, for sure, it's got to be Iceland for me.
I was gonna
It,
wonder. Yeah, I didn't know if there was
it's
another one, but yeah, it's so
it's
fantastic.
it's it's definitely Iceland. Um, and the thing that's been kind of cool with our trips is we've gone to different areas. So we've done the South Coast, we've done the North Coast, we've done the West Fjords. So the last summer we did the West Fjords, and most of it was on dirt roads. So you're not going to have the big bus loads of tourists, or like the South Coast is a little bit more crowded.
Yeah.
Not this year, but it was so nice to not be in areas where there were just tons of people and lots of buses and that sort of thing. I mean, the dirt roads can be a little bit tiresome after a while, but it was just amazing. Jamie got the A7R4.
Yes.
Woohoo! Yeah,
It's good. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
Um,
So yeah, for sure. So Iceland hands down.
Yeah. Oh, Coleman was asking, who are your favorite photographers? Do you have any?
Well, Ansel Adams, and it would be for sure. I mean, as far as my, um, the influences as a child, for sure, and Oh shoot, I should have been ready for that one. There was
Oh no.
another one.
It's only ever when we're asked do we forget. Like we'll be
I
up.
know.
I've noticed that with photographers. Like it's only when we're put on the spot or just like, who is my favorite photographer? Like
Yeah,
who is
yeah.
it? Yeah. And either
My
time I
husband.
have like
No.
five minutes. Yeah, exactly. There you go.
Good answer. No, for sure the the influence of the Ansel Adams for sure, hands down.
For
Yeah.
sure. Mine's Cartier-Bresson. Just I love it. I just love
Who is
him.
it?
He's so
Oh,
Cartier-Bresson,
oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
just so beautifully bizarre.
The
And
decisive moment.
oh yeah, that was by far the number one biggest influence on me as a
Yeah,
photographer once I discovered that. So yeah, for sure. That's mine. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Too
So
cool.
yeah,
Awesome. That's
so
all the questions that I had. I didn't know if there's anything
well,
else that you wanted to mention.
well, yeah. Well, I'm going to do another class with you guys on what is it on the 18th?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So
Oh,
if you guys want to learn more, let me get this up and I'll put it in the link. Holly's going to be doing a workshop for us online. So you can be anywhere in the entire world and take it. And if you want to know more of the ins and outs and the technical aspects of photographing the Milky Way, the Aurora Borealis, all that good stuff, we're going to be doing that on the 18th at 1 o'clock Eastern Standard Time.
okay,
So
yeah. Oh, I
yeah,
see. You just posted that.
yeah.
And if you want to see any of my portfolio and the stuff that I do, it's hollyjansenphotography.com. And then there's also a link there that talks about some of the trips that we do and that as well.
Yeah, back up at the very top of the chat are Holly's photography website and the expeditions website. So if you're interested
Oh,
in going and hanging out, checking them out and the mailing list and all that good stuff too. We've got a
thank
ton
you.
of stuff going on. Oh yeah, oh my gosh, absolutely. So yeah, we've got a ton of stuff going on. We have workshops all throughout the week. We've got some classes that are starting this week. Still like couple chances to sign up if you want to get in last minute. But definitely join us on Saturday on the 18th with Holly again for the Milky Way and Aurora Borealis one. I'm going to be there and I'm excited about it. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah. If we can't go there, we can at least,
We can at least learn about it and prepare and look at all the pretty pictures of it in its
when
glory.
we're able to
Yes.
do that again. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Cool.
Okay.
Awesome. Well, thank you
Okay.
guys so much for coming to hang out. And thank you, Holly, so much for joining us tonight. I super, super, super
Thank you.
appreciate it. And I'll talk to you real soon.
Thank you. Thanks. Thanks a lot. We'll see
Have a
you
good
next
night,
week.
everybody. Yeah, see you next week. Bye.
Bye.